Pete Lau, he teased the IMX 766 and IMX 789 sensors for the OnePlus 9 Pro. You recall, Will, that he was saying himself, OnePlus is about to take the camera very seriously. It's all about the camera. And they're no longer going to be lackluster in that department, but instead they're going to lead in that department. I mean, he didn't use these words, but they signed a deal. They spent money with Hasselblad, and now it's got to pay. The deal's got to pay. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yep.
And the way for it to pay is for the performance to be there. Now, it's funny because you're talking about the Sony sensors that are in there, but you signed the deal with Hasselblad.
Right.
But the Sony sensors, we all know that's some top tier stuff, and you wouldn't expect all of a sudden Hasselblad to start working on a smartphone sensor. Apparently, their involvement has more to do with the ultra wide lens and the processing of the image. In other words, some decisions around picture profile and the way colors are represented and so on. Ultra wide, ultra clear Sony IMX 766. Now, the reason they're mentioning two is because obviously you're going to have the Pro model. The Pro model will be housing a custom developed Sony IMX 789, while the ultra wide will use the Sony IMX 766. The main sensor has a dual native ISO, full pixel omnidirectional autofocus, 4K video at 120 FPS, and real-time HDR video processing. The IMX 766 for the ultra-wide will sit underneath the freeform lens. That's the collaboration with Hasselblad, which will reduce distortion from 20% to about 1%. And just a quick recap on a distortion thing that I was talking about on a previous episode. When you get to the ultra-wide focal length, all of a sudden you start to see this fishbowl effect start to play out on the edges of the frame. You can go into software after the fact and attempt to flatten that out to remove the distortion, but that's something that a lot of people don't end up doing because it's not really the way we take photos and share rapidly. So to have this happen, not even necessarily in software, but with this freeform lens to bring distortion down to 1%. It's really big. You're going to shoot these super wide angle photos that don't have that strange stuff over in the corners, but instead look like a flat image. And then the other thing to mention is often you see a sensor skimp take place on the ultra wide camera that's on a smartphone. Like the ultra wide will be an afterthought. They'd be like, okay, the main camera unit, we're going to put a lot of attention in. But then as far as the ultra-wide is concerned, you can deal with whatever you get.
Right.
Not so much here because you still have an IMX 766 sensor in there underneath that ultra-wide lens. So anyway, point being is, well, we're going to have to wait and see, but just the amount of talk around a camera, it kind of sounds for real. I know all manufacturers do it, but you keep doubling down on that as the CEO. You keep on tweeting about it, and all of a sudden you start to wonder, okay, maybe they really got something. We'll find out. We'll find out actually really soon. Next couple of weeks or whatever. A week? Week and a bit.
Yeah.